We've got the USS Edson battleship in Bay City that is said to have a lot of activity, and I can go on record to say that that's absolutely true. Wasn't quite prepared for that one.
Haunted Michigan. Terrifying tales.
Hey, Steve, super cool of you to join us for Haunted Michigan here. A few years ago, we talked about the Hell House, and for anybody that hasn't experienced the Hell House thing, you should look that up on YouTube. It is just it's incredible. But we'll talk about some more haunted places in Michigan coming up here in a few. But first, I want you to take a chance to talk about the haunting on Brockway Street 3, and that comes up on November 29th. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been doing a big red carpet premiere. I mean, Haunted Saginaw, we've been doing this since 2010, actually. So every year we do an investigation local to the area, primarily Saginaw County, but sometimes a little further out. And we do a big premiere of the investigation documentary at the Historic Temple Theater in Saginaw. It's a red carpet event. And so this will actually be the 13th red carpet premiere. Haunting on Brockway Street was an investigation that we did of an old mansion on Brockway Street in Saginaw. There's a lot of history, there's a lot of activity, and we went there and thought we had everything under control. Came back the second time, of course, Haunting on Brockway Street 2, things were much worse, I guess you could say. There's really no mild way to put that, and we brought in a lot of people to help resolve this. And just when we thought everything was good, sure enough, something happens. A late night 911 phone call is made. We find out what's happening. We look at the security system. We realize that the cause of this 911 call was not human. And we really had no choice but to come back one last time. That doesn't mean for sure it's going to be gone, but we can only allocate so much resource. I'll always be a part of this family in terms of going there to help out, but this will be the last actual film. And we threw everything we had at this.
Now, you just said something interesting. So back when, obviously paranormal investigators have been around for a long time and whatnot, but you just said you looked up the security footage. Now, that hasn't been around a long time. So is that something that paranormal investigators use a lot nowadays?
Yeah, man, you know what? You hit it right on the head. It's changed everything, right? Because, you got to think, let's go back 20 years ago or whatever. In the 70s, you had parapsychologists and kind of the origins of the investigation process that we have today. And all you really had to go off of was testimony of the people, maybe a friend, a neighbor, a cousin who spent the night and saw this, heard that. And so you would have to go off of the word of the individuals and try to do your research that way. Is there any patterns to this? What are you seeing? Now let me go in myself and investigate. But now, everybody at all times, boom, phone in their pocket, video, surveillance, doorbell cams, indoor security cam. It's crazy how much footage can exist today and how you can rule out things. Like in this case here, this 911 call that was made. I don't want to give away too much, right? But let's just say that there was an intrusion in the home. There was damage done to the home while somebody was there, terrified for their life and hiding. The police came, all of these things, and we were able to look even in their app, because we came here immediately, and see that the alarm didn't go off, that all the doors were locked, all the windows were secure, nothing was set off, but at the same time, there is all of this visible damage from what something did to the home, and a door specifically trying to get into a room that this person was hiding in. So what do you say at that point, right? You have no entry actually to the home, but yet you have tangible evidence that something ripped a door off its hinges and actually even fractured the wood door. It's not a person, because cameras show every angle of the house. Nobody entered the home and the alarm system was active, but yet this still took place.
Is that one of those things when crazy stuff starts happening in houses, you just set up cameras all over the place, just try to catch something?
Well, yeah, number one, that's the best way to do it, because at the end of the day, it's it's kind of a weird comparison, but like you're going fishing, right? You're trying to catch a fish. You're going to be more likely if you've got 10 lines in the water.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's just a numbers game. But yeah, when possible, running as many cameras as you can, it's going to increase your odds quite a bit.
Now, real fast, I talked about the Hell House earlier, and like I said, people can look it up on YouTube. I think it's you caught some very impressive things there. Obviously, you're probably there, tens of hours of film, but then you compile it, and it's like there's some crazy stuff that went on there. Tell people a little bit about that house real fast.
Sure, and actually several hundreds of hours.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that crazy. So, wow, where do you begin, right, with a case like this? Dice Road. First of all, Dice Road is an infamous back road in Michigan, Saginaw County. It's a very rural community. And it's known for so many hauntings per capita. It's crazy, right? We've all heard the lore of Dice Road. There's the Dice Road Cemetery people talk about. I personally won't go in there. I don't want to disturb a cemetery. So haunted or not, that to me is off limits. I wouldn't suggest anybody do that. But there's those claims. Certain parts of the road, there's a bridge that's said to be haunted. There's these rumors about a man named Crazy Larry that comes back. There's a phantom car they say that chases people. And I even know people that claim this happened, because to me that's kind of a wild belief, right? That there's a phantom car that appears out of nowhere, gets behind you, no headlights, and runs you out. And I'm kind of like, yeah, well, maybe that's a neighbor being protective or something. But this has been going on for like 45 years,
Hmm.
these claims, and I have personal friends that I believe that say this did happen to me. So let me get to the point though. There's all these rumors that have been going on for like 50, 60 years plus on Dice Road, but none of them have ever been about the most infamous haunting that has ever happened on Dice Road. Even I, doing this for so many years right here in Saginaw County, I never knew about the Hell House, as we call it. And essentially, somebody approached me for about 2 years, anonymously contacting me saying, I need to talk to you. I need to give you something. I won't tell you why, so of course I'm not going to go do that, right? I'm not going to just meet a stranger. And it was kind of a war of attrition. And finally I said, they caught me on the right day. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Meet me at this place in 35 minutes and park here. I gave them a criteria. And if you want to meet, this is the one and only time I'm going to do this. Let's do this. They showed up. They had a huge box. They gave it to me, said a few things to me, left a phone number, and me and the people I'm with take the box somewhere and we start rifling through it. And I'm thinking, maybe this is really creative fiction. Maybe somebody's created this whole thing and it's kind of maybe they're going to write a book or something. I don't know. And I'm kind of like, can these police reports be real? I mean, some of the first ones I yanked out, they're state police reports, Saginaw County Sheriff's Department. I'm seeing things in there about the FAA. I'm seeing things about houses cracking and foundations and lie detectors. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? So I just started doing some preliminary, relatively simple detective work, if you want to call it that. And I'm looking at all the police signatures and names, and I'm writing them all down. And I start researching every one of these names. And sure enough, every one of these people during that time, was a sergeant, a detective, a deputy, a trooper. And I started reaching out to these people. Within a day, I was getting responses. And most of them said, because my message to them is, hi, this is who I am. This is what I'm inquiring about. Does this address mean anything to you? And every one of them responded with things like, I always wondered when somebody would reach out to me about this. And then my follow-up to every one of them is, before I ask you any more questions, is this true? Every one of them said yes.
Mm.
Every one of them, and for people saying, okay, well, what is this? In the 1970s, there was a family that had lived in a house for over 10 years that they built themselves, never had a problem, no issues whatsoever. And on one night, their life changes forever, in a sense that every single day for over half a year, they're being tormented by broken windows, pounding on their house, fires, what sounds like explosions. And that is just really the tip of the iceberg.
No, it was fascinating. Like I said, I'll link some of the stories in our last conversation in the description of this so that people can see it. But you just mentioned you don't go into cemeteries. That's just kind of an unwritten rule you have?
I mean, for me it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've done it in different locations. When you're talking about a cemetery that's from the late 1700s, early 1800s, it's not really active anymore. And if it's part of a certain case that I'm doing, for some reason, I will go into a cemetery. But like with Dice Road, these are well, it doesn't matter when a person passes away, right? 1800s, whatever. Either way, it's like I don't want to go in there and disturb that unless you really need to for some reason, right?
Okay.
Because, these are people's parents, descendants, grandparents, they're human beings. And I feel like going into a cemetery just for the sake of investigating and trying to capture evidence, we have a billion places we could do that. I don't think we need to do it there. That's just my opinion anyway.
Now, what were some other places in and around Michigan that you found just a lot of activity? Give me some stories about some of the stuff that you've seen and witnessed.
Man, I mean, where do you begin, right? I mean, Michigan, we have so much lore.
Hmm.
We really are rich in lore and hauntings, and whether it be specific lighthouses in the area, like the old Shoal Lighthouse. I think that's 20 miles out in the water in Lake Michigan. Talks about apparitions, poltergeist type activity, even elemental type things. I mean, we have the Michigan Dogman, which I don't want to say too much about, but you're gonna you're going to be hearing about that from me quite a bit in the very near future. We've got the USS Edson battleship in Bay City that is said to have a lot of activity, and I can go on record to say that that's absolutely true. I spent a few months on that ship investigating it, and wow, I wasn't quite prepared for that one. All over the southwest part of the state. I mean, there's so many different locations, that we have, and there's a lot of different theories too. I mean, some people kind of say that there's a correlation between running water or bodies of water being kind of a conduit of different energies. I mean, we are surrounded by the Great Lakes,
Mm.
as well. I mean, does that play a part in it? I'm open to the idea, but I can't say that's 100% the case. But and then you look at Mackinac, Mackinac Island is said to be a very haunted location. There's a lot of interesting things that have taken place there and different battles. People are still finding bones and things like that to this day. Unfortunately, sometimes burial grounds get disturbed, and that's always a catalyst for activity as well. Like in Saginaw, Michigan on Hamilton Street, that was one of the first two films that I did independently. And one of the things that we looked at with a specific location was when they were widening the street right in front of this business, they unearthed a bunch of remains of Native Americans accidentally. But, even though it was accidental, it's still a disturbance, and that could very well be, the cause of that. And of course, we're rich in that history as well. So Michigan is definitely, if you want to say a hot spot, I think we definitely rank up there pretty high.
Now you mentioned the dog man. So where, without giving too much away, what location are we talking about in Michigan?
Well, the Dogman, you know, there's been sightings all over the state. I mean, primarily to me, it seems that the hot spot is going to be northern Michigan, in that, kind of above mid Michigan, kind of Crawford County, Roscommon County, even up in the Traverse City region, and of course, even further, even into the Upper Peninsula. And that's not something that would normally be in my wheelhouse, right? But all I'm going to say is that, when I was much younger, there was a strange incident that I observed, that I've kind of always kept to myself and the very few people that were present, because it's one of those things where you don't really know what to say, like, I mean, people will kind of say, well, black bears can have but the difference between a black bear and something. I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot to be said there, and a lot that's going to be said about that. But it does make you wonder, what that phenomenon is, how there's been sightings for how many decades, and in fact centuries, in recorded documents in the area. And it always kind of makes you wonder, what could these things be, that are being seen by thousands of Michigan residents over a very long period of time? What is the truth in that?
And that's not something that's paranormal. That's something that people witness, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess by definition, the word paranormal, I guess, can be summed up as something that can't be scientifically explained. So, I mean, I guess there's, maybe to us, there's phenomenon taking place today that we are all saying, oh my God, that's paranormal activity. Yes, maybe in 400 years, there'll be an explanation for some of the things that we encounter that we look at as supernatural, if that makes sense.
Now you mentioned the battleship there in Saginaw. I've talked to some other people about that as well. You said you spent months there, huh? So what kind of things
A
did
couple
you?
months.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what kind
and
of things you see there?
a couple of months. In fact, I'll drop it here with you. That is going to be my next film, is a haunting on the Saginaw River, The Gray Ghost. That will be the next Haunted Saginaw documentary to follow from Brockway 3. So we were brought there by some people that, that knew there was a lot of activity, that knew me, asked if I would be interested. We had to go in front of a board of people that, that control the ship and its integrity and all of those things, and they voted to allow me to do it. And so we spent about, I think maybe about 6 to 7 weeks on the ship, all night long, every single night, night after night. Number one, I will tell you, in the dead of summer, that thing is very hot. Even late at night when it's cool and breezy, you are in a steel oven cage, man.
Right.
That was brutal. Not to mention, those doors you walk through for flooding purposes, they go up a couple of feet, and you can imagine how many shin bruises and fractures that we occurred, during that time when you're walking around the dark full speed, bing, and I could go on with that, but active 1000%. In fact, whatever expectation I was hoping that might be the case was 1,000 times above that, to the point where we just kept coming back every night that we could, because it seemed like the longer we were investigating it, the higher the activity we were catching, so we stayed as long as we were basically allowed to stay.
I was gonna say, do these spirits or apparitions kind of get used to you being there, or maybe open up a little bit more if you're there night after night?
Yes, I believe that's the case. I believe that in some cases, exactly what you said, they get used to you more, and they're more likely to interact or communicate. And if they don't want you there, they're also more likely to show you that as time goes by, right? Depending on what you are dealing with, And then on that ship, there was a lot of activity, and there was some very specific individuals we were trying to communicate to, where people that run the ship, and in its history, there was a death on the ship. There was more than one death on the ship, but there are certain spirits that they knew had been there and that do reside there. And so that was kind of our main goal, was to communicate with them, see if we could offer any kind of, I guess, peace in some kind of sense. Do they want to be there? Do they not want to be there? Why are some of these things happening? Let's see if we can kind of dive in and find out. But we took it very seriously. I mean, we do with every investigation, but in this case, you're talking about, veterans. You're talking about, a ship that was used in war. You're talking about our heroes, basically, right? So we wanted to be very, very, very respectful, in every way that we could, from how we entered the ship, how we spoke, what questions we asked, and what we did.
And speaking of ships, have you ever done any investigations up at, was that Whitefish Point, where the shipwreck museum is? Have you ever done anything like that, as far as ships that have gone down in like Lake Superior or whatnot?
No, I have not. I'm super interested in that in a lot of ways, but have I actually investigated that? No.
Okay. And then you just mentioned war down here in outside of Detroit. There's Monroe, Michigan, where there's battlefields and stuff. Have you ever done anything down there?
No, I've been down there, and I'm kind of a nerd like that. That I like to go to things like that and check things out and kind of walk around and read all the pamphlets and everything. But I haven't investigated there, in an official capacity. No.
Yeah. So what else do you have coming up besides what you were just talking about? Is there anything else that you can plug?
Yeah, sure. Well, we just finished season 8 of Paranormal Caught on Camera, and I think that just finished airing, and now we're already on to season 9, and that's been pretty fun. I came on season 6, and this will be my ninth season with them. Of course, that's on the Travel Channel, but I think you can find that also on Max and Discovery Plus,
Hmm.
as well. So kind of working on that. Of course, Brockway 3 about to come up, again, November 29th at the Temple Theater in Saginaw. And even on my own, through Patreon, I have a Patreon, just Patreon/Steve Shippy. I release an exclusive investigation every single month. So actually now I think there's like 125 investigations that nobody has ever seen because I've been on there for 5 years.
Now,
So
these investigations just locally or all across the country?
well, these ones specifically are more in the Saginaw
Okay.
County region. But but that won't, that's not to say that we won't go further with that. It's hard, man, because we get so many amazing offers to come out and investigate places far away that are really, really interesting. But we have so many cases here in our area, and we kind of feel, I don't want to say obligated, but this is our area and this is where we started Haunted Saginaw. So I guess for me personally, those cases will always kind of have a priority.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done anything outside of Michigan, like the Sally House and some of the more famous ones? Have you ever
Oh
done
yeah,
anything like that? Yeah. You've been at
absolutely.
Sally House?
I have. Yeah. In fact, of course I have I had my own series on the Travel Channel called Haunting in the Heartland. And that's also, you can find that on Max and I think Amazon Prime and other places. And that was one of the episodes that we did. We went to Atchison and we did the Sally House.
Wow. I'm gonna have to set my DVR up to catch all your shows and do all your stuff
And
because
that's another thing that's so complicated for me, man, is because I feel like I have split audiences in a sense, like I have the Haunted Saginaw audience that a lot of the times really have no idea that I'm also doing stuff with the Travel Channel and the network. And then I had people that are, supporters from that have no idea that Haunted Saginaw exists. So it's kind of like, and then you asked me about music earlier. So then there's also that's over here somewhere. And it's just it's a weird place to be. And I just try my best to accommodate them as
yeah,
much as
to navigate everything.
that's
That's
all I
right.
can do. Yeah.
Yeah. So how often do people reach out to you to investigate places in Saginaw or anywhere?
Quite a bit. I would say we usually get about 100 to 150 requests a year. And out of that 150, I would say 50 or 60 seem relatively urgent, and then we kind of whittle that down to about 10, by kind of a vetting process of reaching back out to the people, asking a bunch of questions. Because I kind of look at it like the quickest way to do that is communicate your brains off to somebody, really give them homework, ask them for certain things, because the more you do that, if they aren't really willing to reciprocate that energy back, then you need to give it to the people that really seem like, hey, this is a problem. It's
Mhm.
really affecting our lives. We need the help. And once we can narrow it down to that, we'll jump on the cases that we know we can handle. And even if there's some that we're kind of like, man, how do you make a decision here? We will bring somebody else to help them, or we will investigate it, but just not put it on film. Because we do a lot of that too, and people don't know about those cases because they're not public.
Yeah. Is there, do you ever get into a situation where you're like, this is kind of too crazy for me?
Yes. Yes.
So give us an example of that.
Man, I mean, yeah, God, there's some I would love to, but probably shouldn't. But I mean, we've had cases where the activity was so wild and the people were wilder than the activity. You know what I mean? And it's just so intense and so much to try to handle that you just do the best you can, and then at the end of it, you're kind of like, well, we did everything we can, and here's some names and numbers of other people that might be able to come in and assist you or whatever, because it's just you know, yeah, there's just a few cases that come to mind. I'll give you a little bit. There's one where we kept going to this location, and meeting with the people and building a rapport and thinking that we were all on this, level, and the activity is just insane, and we're doing all these things, and it gets worse, and then we come back and we come back and we come back, and then finally one of them says, well, I'm wondering if, some of the summoning rituals I'm doing are bringing in the wrong things. And we're like, wait, what? And they're like, well, yeah, no, I mean, hear me out. And then they just kind of like take us to this room and they open it up and there's like it's like a ritual room. And I'm like, look, I don't think I can help you at this point. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what this is. I don't know what you're bringing in, what you want to come in, what's coming in that shouldn't come in. But, this might be why you're having all of this go on, and that's on you, I guess. It's up to you whether or not you want to do this, but you're creating more of a storm every time we come back. We're trying to mop up the storm water and shore up the house, and then you're just bringing it back over and over again. So I think this is a endless cycle that we can't get out of, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, when you say activity, by the way, do you mean with your devices, or do your things thrown around the room, or both, or what?
Yeah, that means everything.
Okay.
I mean, activity to me that's affecting people in a home that's important to us, right? I mean, number one, we hate seeing it happen, but it does. Scratches and being pushed, and the physical attack kind of scenarios. And other than that, sometimes you have kind of the poltergeist style activity, doors slamming all night long, things being thrown, coming home and finding your house a mess, and things of that nature. Those are very nuisance style disturbances, that scare the heck out of people. And you know, you got to think about it too, man. Like when it's your home, that's like the one place that you should feel comfortable. It's like that's kind of like your haven, right? And when people are afraid to be home, that's when a lot of bad things start.
Hmm.
That kind of stress on people, because really, man, it's a thing. It really is. I mean, I always kind of say to people, different things that exist in life. There's therapy for. You go to a therapist or whatever, and you say, I went through this divorce or this breakup or this death in my family. Or even people that are out there like, oh, I'm trying to quit smoking and all these things, and there's therapy for that. Imagine if you yourself were terrified to go home, if you were afraid to sleep at night, if you were afraid for yourself and maybe your kids, your family. What kind of toll does that take
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
people? Yeah, I mean, really,
And you've been kicked and scratched yourself?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I just watched the latest Conjuring movie. Are you familiar with the Smurl house?
Yes.
All right. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, I think, of course, when it comes to Hollywood movies, there's always, there's going to be some creative licensing. That's just, fact. But I mean, the Smurl case was a shocking case of the Warrens. I mean, it really was. I mean, that was a very shocking, very famous case. I saw the film myself, actually, not that long ago. I went to the theater and saw that, and definitely thought it was a good film. There were a lot of accurate things in that film. Again, some obviously licensed, but
Right.
a lot of accurate things. Yeah, the Warrens, of course, they seem to chase after some of the worst cases because that's just what they did. They went after cases that most people wouldn't touch.
Including yourself?
I'm dumb enough to have done it. I've done it. At the end of the day, it's one of those things where you're kind of like, nah, I'm just gonna okay, let's go. You know what I mean? Um, but as time goes by, I will say those cases are becoming less appealing to me. Because I feel like you have to be in the right place at all times to really do cases like that. And you're playing around with a lot of things, at that time. You have to wrestle with your beliefs and theology, religion, and the people that are involved. And so I think that, when people are dealing with something that they believe is truly an evil type of thing, it's always best, I think, that they align themselves with people that share their religious views
Mm.
and bring in people that are considered clergy from that, and that they kind of tackle it that way. I don't think as paranormal investigators, or as folks like to refer to as all blanketed as ghost hunters or whatever, I don't think we need to tromp around there and just ask a whole bunch of questions for the sake of catching something on video. Cases like that need to be dealt with discreetly and properly, in my opinion.
Yeah. Are you a fan of the Warrens? I've heard conflicting reports about, them over the years.
Yeah, me personally, yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of the Warrens, for a lot of reasons. I think that they had very good intentions. Um, in fact, I have this picture. I just saw it the other day. It's on my Instagram. I'll never forget. I was trying to reach out to Lorraine Warren. This is a long time ago. I don't remember what year. I want to say 15, 16, something like that, 14. I don't recall. And I was trying to reach out to her to interview her about something. And she wasn't able to do it. But one day I'm sitting at my desk and the phone rings and the caller ID says Ed Warren.
Mm,
And of course, Ed wasn't around anymore, but probably the phone was still in his
right.
name. So I had to grab my phone, take a picture of it while it was ringing, answer the call, and I believe it was Lorraine's nephew, I think, that had answered it, and basically just kind of relayed that, she was flattered for the offer for the interview, but wasn't able to. I think she had issues at the time and stuff. And but they, I guess to answer the question, sorry, I got in the weeds there. I think that they were good people. I think they had really good intentions, and sure, there's always going to be controversy. But then again, if you don't have any controversy, then you're not making any noise, right? So
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, we'll wrap things up here. I really appreciate you taking the time and getting back with me to do this. Of course, this is the season, and we'll push everybody towards the towards your Saginaw, the Brockway Street 3 coming up on November 29th. Did I get all that right? I'm not sure. I'm just using I'm just using my brain, which isn't very big. So
yeah, no, that's all right. Yep. November 29th, Saturday right after Thanksgiving. It's a cool time, man. It's a really huge old historic theater in Saginaw. We're kind of lucky to have a venue like this for such a small city. It holds 2,000 people. It's a lot like the Fox Theater and just kind of how ornate it is.
Oh, okay.
It's a really beautiful place, and you can get drinks. There's a full bar there, and so it's not just coming to watch a movie, because we go out on stage and we talk to everybody and kind of mingle with the crowd. So it really is more of an event than it is just kind of sitting down and watching a film, if that makes sense.
I'll have to make the trek up there. Last time I was there, I think was to I don't know, was it the Dow Event Center, right? That's the concert venue up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that was the last time I was up in Saginaw, and that was a couple years ago for a concert.
Tobias?
No.
Ghost?
No. Yeah, is that your band?
That's my band. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get to see them last time they were here because I had another thing going on, but man, I love seeing those guys in concert.
Yeah. Well, if you want to come up to the premiere, let me know, man. I'll get you and whoever you want. Get you guys up here VIP and just check it out. It's a good time.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.